You're looking at the Ardennes forests and mountain area of Belgium. It's very rural, and it's here this weekend that you join us for the Grand Prix of Belgium. Hello, I'm Jackie Stewart. Since the last Grand Prix that we covered by ESPN, there's been a tragedy in the sport. Elio De Angelis, the young Italian driver, lost his life during a practice and testing accident in the south of France at the Paul Ricard circuit. Sadly, he died 2 days after his crash. Now, perhaps I can say this better than most people. Racing drivers know the risks that they take. But remember one thing. They do what they want to do. They know the risks. And above all, a racing driver loves his sport. Elio De Angelis died doing the thing that he most loved to do. The Belgium Grand Prix has always been a dangerous racetrack. It's taken many lives, in fact. Where I'm standing right now is on the road of the normal streets here in Belgium. The Spa-Francorchamps circuit is very famous. 20 years ago to this very weekend, I had my biggest racing accident at this very corner. This is the Master Kink. I came around here in the pouring rain, the car aquaplaned or hydroplaned. I knocked down a telegraph pole just a little left of where I'm standing now, ran into a woodcutter's house and knocked it down. The redeveloped since then, and then I finally ended up on the lower area down there, trapped in my car. Graham Hill and Bob Bondurant had to borrow wrenches from a spectator's car to get me out the crippled car. It took more than 30 minutes for an ambulance to find me. Then I was taken back to the nerve centre of the Belgium Grand Prix, to a medical unit it was called. In fact, it had no table in it. I was laid on the floor along with a lot of cigarette ends. I was finally taken to hospital after the police escort that was leading my ambulance lost its way. I tell you all of that because motor racing is clearly dangerous. But things have improved considerably since 1966. Around this racetrack, you see many things that stood as they were at that time. Barbed wire around the racetrack instead of barriers. And that was just to keep the cows out. No protection at all for the spectators. There was very little safety in those days. But I am glad to report things, they are a-changing, and they have changed considerably. On the new Spa circuit, it's been cut out the mountainside, almost carved out. The surface is billiard table smooth, there are beautiful curbs. And then, to retard a car to begin with, there's gravel. And this gravel, in fact, is very deep indeed, very deep. You really sink into it. And of course, this does retard the progress of a car, much in the same way as at the end of an airport runway, if a jet overshoots, it gets into this gravel and really slows it down safely. And of course, there's a lot of runoff area here nowadays. Space is a great saver in the case of accidents. There are, of course, barriers and then tires in front of some of the barriers to soften the impact if impact occurs. And then chain link fencing is introduced. That retards the vehicle again, much in the same way as a tennis ball is slowed up by a tennis net. Above all, there is space. And when you're traveling at the speeds that these race cars do today, there's just no substitute for space. It is certainly a safer track. We'll be right back after this. This pre-race report is being brought to you by Ford and your Ford dealer. Have you driven a Ford lately? On the back of every admission ticket for every race around the world, it says motor racing is dangerous. Much has been done, however, over the years to make it safer. The cars themselves have got more sophisticated equipment and, of course, they've been constructed in a stronger way. The racetracks themselves have removed a lot of the unnecessary hazards. The driver equipment, that's become better. Crash helmets and uniforms. But perhaps the area where most improvement has been shown is that in the area of medicine. There's one man who goes to all of the Grand Prix right now, and he is in charge of all medical facilities and everything that requires any driver injury or looking after a driver's need. That man is Professor Watkins. He's head of neurosurgery at the London Hospital. Things have changed a lot on the medical front in those 20 years.
Yes, they have. We've moved in several different directions. I suppose the overpowering change in concept was the rapid response concept, so that we take the medical facilities and the resuscitation facilities to the driver at the scene of the accident as soon and as quickly as possible. We try to be there within 90 seconds. That's the ideal.
Now, you have special vehicles for this.
Yes, special vehicles have been developed. They're called rapid response vehicles. They're driven by an experienced race driver. They are manned by teams of doctors and drivers who are used to working together and used to dealing with the sophisticated equipment that they now have on board.
And you do have, of course, a great deal of equipment on board.
Yes, indeed. Here again, there have been major advances in firefighting, and the sophisticated vehicle such as we're standing by carries a firefighting capability, the driver being, again, an experienced firefighter.
Now, let's have a look at some of that equipment.
Well, having rendered the situation safe with the use of the fire equipment, if it's necessary, the primary thing then is to make sure that the driver has an adequate airway, so that there is plenty of oxygen and circulation going to the driver's brain and principal organs. In order to achieve that, these cars carry resuscitation equipment to intubate, to put a tube down into the driver's lungs, oxygen to provide the supply from cylinders. There are intravenous perfusion sets, fluid to replace any blood loss or shock that the driver has suffered. And the whole purpose of the second stage, if you like, after making sure that the driver is safe in terms of protection from fire, is to stabilize the situation in the car, because so frequently nowadays with complex cars like the Formula One car, the driver is trapped and it may take a long time to get him out. So what we want to avoid is tearing a driver out of a car in a terrible hurry in order to resuscitate him. We avoid that now by doing it in the car. The airway is taken care of, the circulation is dealt with intravenous apparatus, and then having got the driver into a safe condition from the medical point of view, he can then be extricated in an orderly and calm way. Sometimes it's necessary to take the car to bits around him.
And you have the equipment to do that?
And we now have the equipment to do that. In the first instance, for that, there's the need for hydraulic spreaders, so-called jaws of life in the United States. There are power cutters and power saws in order to part the metal or part the carbon fiber of which the cars are now composed.
And of course the drivers can then be taken quickly to a first aid facility, which is also very sophisticated.
Yes, at all the Grand Prix circuits now there is a medical center which has been equipped to the same level as a modern intensive care or intensive therapy unit in a modern hospital.
How many doctors and help do you have for a Grand Prix, at each Grand Prix?
Well, for example, at this one, apart from the 3 Porsches that you see here, there are 5 other rapid response vehicles that are similarly equipped and teamed with teams of doctors on board each of these vehicles. And then there's a medical center with a team of doctors there, of surgeons, anesthetists, intensivists, x-ray capability, and radiologists to interpret the x-rays.
So, as you can see, an enormous amount has been done in the medical front. This has probably been the greatest progress over those 20 years in safety. We'll be right back with John Bisignano after this. This pre-race report has been brought to you by Ford and your Ford dealer. Have you driven a Ford lately? Spa-Francorchamps, one of the great names in the annals of motor racing history. It's here that titans were created. Names like Nuvolari, Caracciola, Fangio, Stirling Moss. The great Jim Clark here won on 4 successive occasions. It's a racetrack of enormous change in a lot of different ways. It's a racetrack that you bring a T-shirt and an umbrella to, because one minute it can be clear blue skies and warm sunshine, the next torrential rain. The Belgium Grand Prix, working with me in this great event this weekend, John Bisignano.
Jackie, I think you put your finger on it when you mentioned the word change, especially the weather. We've been watching the fronts move through here virtually every half hour. Something different is happening. That causes a problem for the team managers and drivers. Number one, they have to match the car and the tires to the conditions of the circuit. Now, with that, they have to choose both the right compound and the right design. Also, last year, a tremendous battle between Alain Prost, the current world championship, Ayrton Senna, the brave young Brazilian, and of course, this year, Nigel Mansell is looking to get right back in that battle again. Jackie, you said titans. I think we have to bring out the point that Dan Gurney, the American entrant and driver, early days of Formula One, won here in the American-constructed Eagle in 1967 and was robbed of a second victory here at Spa by running out of gas just a few yards from the finishing line.
Well, I don't think that's going to happen this time. We don't expect fuel problems here for this Belgium Grand Prix. Now let's have a look at the starting grid. So on pole position, Nelson Piquet of Brazil and the Canon Williams Honda. In second fastest, Berger of Austria driving the Benetton. A remarkable performance to him. He was fastest almost until the last minutes of qualifying yesterday. Third fastest, reigning world champion Alain Prost. Way down in fourth fastest, unusual for him, Ayrton Senna in the JPS Lotus. Fifth is Nigel Mansell in the other Williams car. Theo Fabi makes up the top 6. That's a good order for him. René Arnoux of France is 7th. Keke Rosberg way back in 8th, but he did well in Monte Carlo coming from far back in the grid, so he could do it again. Michele Alboreto in the first Ferrari is 9th fastest. Patrick Tambay makes up the top 10 in the Ford Engines American Haas entered Lola. Stefan Johansson, Martin Brundle in the Data General car is 12th fastest. 13th, lucky for some, unlucky for others, Johnny Dumfries in the JPS. Then we have Terry Boutsen, Riccardo Patrese, Alan Jones is 16th fastest, Jack Lafitte, Philip Streff, De Cesaris, Jonathan Palmer is 20th, Mark Surer 21st, Nannini of Italy, Rothengat of Holland is 23rd, Genzani is 24th, and making up the grid on 25th position, Christian Danner. We'll be right back for the start of the race after this. The Belgium Grand Prix is being brought to you by BF Goodrich TA Radios. Built for you to take on the road. By Budweiser. Beechwood aged for that clean, crisp taste. Picture you're looking at is in fact the driver's picture as Philippe Streff, driving the Data General Tyrrell, drives off the line with a camera on board on this Grand Prix of Belgium that takes place on this 27th of May. The weather is beautiful. It's 80 degrees here. The winds are from the east at 10 miles an hour. It's t-shirt weather. We've hidden the umbrellas. We're going around this great racetrack. We've already turned La Source. We're heading down the hill to Eau Rouge. This is where the old pits used to be. You see them on the right-hand side. In fact, when they have endurance races here, they still use those pits. They go through here in about 4th gear, very, very fast. It's where Stefan Bellof died, sadly, last year in a 956 Porsche. And now they head up, as we look down from our helicopter, to the fastest part of the racetrack. They will reach speeds just on top of 200 miles an hour. They did that in practice, probably a little slower in the race, to about 191 before braking. And you see the car of Alan Jones, the American entered Haas with the Ford engine, warming its tires up as the cars file through in preparation for this 43-lap race. Now, John Bisignano, as you know, is working with me in this show. The great sensation in qualifying and practice was Gerhard Berger.
Exactly, Jackie. A young Austrian driver, following in the footsteps of hopefully Jochen Rindt and Niki Lauda, only aged 26. Gerhard Berger surprised everyone by taking the Tolman to the second pole position ever for that team, and has done a very good job on setting the pole on Saturday. Now, very late, correction, setting the pole on Friday. Very late on Saturday, that was just holding up all the way through that session, and in the last few minutes, Nelson Piquet came along and took it away from him. Unfortunately, the whole team was a bit dismayed at that, but certainly they're looking for some very good performance out of the Tolman team with their young Austrian driver.
Well, if he had held the pole position, he would have been the first Austrian since Niki Lauda, and before that, Jochen Rindt ever to hold a pole position. And you still see Philipp Streff going round here, the flame coming out the car in front of him, which is the car of Patrese, with the only Brabham entered. You know, the sad loss of Elio De Angelis during that testing accident of the Paul Ricard circuit has left the Brabham only with one car for this race. Derek Warwick has been chosen to be the new driver who will start racing in Montreal. And there you see Streff now beginning to warm his tires up. That's why he's turning the steering wheel in that way, to get the temperatures right back up.
You know, Jackie, you said earlier that this surface is so smooth that it looks like the cars are actually warming the tires up more than normal. It's not a terribly abrasive surface, but they must get those tires up to temperature, both fronts and rears, before the green light goes on.
Well, keep in mind that this is a long circuit. It's 4.312 miles around. This is the final chicane. They've only got one more corner before coming on to the starting grid proper. And that is Alan Jones in front of him in the Haas entered Lola with the Ford engine, the turbocharged engine. And there are the cars. You can see the front end of this grid now. And of course, you do have Nelson Piquet with Gerhard Berger on the right-hand side. Then behind him, you've got Alain Prost, the reigning world champion. On the left-hand side of your top screen there in the corner, you will see the lights coming on. When the red light shows, it's only a matter of seconds. And there's the light on. The light is on. Any second now, we're going to see the start, and they're off. And Piquet makes a clean start. He's right away. Look at them on the outside there. That's Keke Rosberg on the outside. And Beloff punches Senna on the way round. Prost has been bumped as well. It's a traffic jam in Mansell. And Berger is out, and Prost is out. And so is Fabi. Fabi's kept his engine running. There's a wheel off of Alan Jones's car. Berger's getting started. That was Senna that seemed to start that. And leading the race away there is the past world champion Nelson Piquet from Senna, and they've got a clear lead now. Alain Prost has been taken out. Whether the engine is restarted or not, I don't know.
It's unusual, Jackie. The speeds there are so low. Here we see a couple of cars getting away. That is Prost. He has a broken wing. He's going to have to stop for that. It's going to be a lengthy stop to change that. Nelson Piquet taking the pole position. Jackie, the cars were going, still accelerating maybe up to 80, 90 miles an hour, but it was a slow first corner. I think it was unusual to have that much damage done in the first corner. Last year, Piquet spun there and the whole field missed it.
Well, it was because simply a traffic jam. I think that's the car of Alan Jones. It does look like the American Haas entered car as it is pushed away by the marshals to try and get it out of harm's way. They're aware that if they had another incident in that corner, a vehicle like that could be a serious problem for a driver. Clay Regazzoni is paralyzed today because he ran in behind a stationary car at Long Beach a long time ago. So the television company are giving us a long shot of this, and there you see the car again as they come round. So this is a replay of the accident. That's Martin Brundle in the Data General car pulling away. Streff got through without any damage. You can see the turbo lag there was a little slow to come in as he went down there, and that is a replay of what happened on this very first lap. Nelson Piquet, in the meantime, has drawn a commanding lead as he comes round towards the end of this first lap with Ayrton Senna, who it seemed to me caused that commotion by, there was a bumping match that went on, and Alain Prost trying to get on the inside, rose up the curb on the inside, and the problem came to as they come to the end of this very first lap. Nelson Piquet comes across, Ayrton Senna, and then Nigel Mansell comes through, and it looks like Alboreto and the Ferrari. It looks like Alboreto. Then it's Johnny de Vries, and then one of the
that was actually Alan Jones on the track, so Patrick Tambay was the one who unfortunately lost a corner there on the very first corner.
And there you see the USF&G Arrow car there as we replay once again this incident. And you see the red car in the front there looks like it must have been Patrick Tamby's car, and yet no, I think it was Jones that got through, and in fact Tamby was the one that hit. We tried to read that again.
That's Tamby there. Off,
there you
going
see
off.
Tamby's on the left-hand side. He has the blue helmet. Alan Jones has a white helmet. So that certainly was, and there's Berger in the pits after being second fastest. Alan Prost in the pits also getting the front wing change. They're having trouble getting the Zeus fasteners undone. You can see the new nose cone awaiting this very efficient tag McLaren team.
You know, Jackie, I think Prost actually did that damage on the guardrail. He was certainly pushed all the way up against the guardrail, and he must have made contact on that side with the Armco itself.
Well, that certainly looked like it was. It was a very tough traffic jam, and that often happens where a slow corner is immediately after the start. There is such congestion on the racetrack that cars do come together. Alan Prost rejoins the race, more than 1 lap behind. So, and there, coming out of the pits now, accelerating hard, is one of the drivers who we expected. In fact, I chose to win this race, so that's my little lottery go down the drain.
Well, now, wait a minute, Jackie. Prost has a great recovery powers, but still, this might be too much for him today. Nelson Piquet coming through the chicane.
And he is almost now catching up on Alan Prost, which would mean 2 laps. So I think around this 4 and a bit mile circuit, it would just be too much to ask. Twice world champion Nelson Piquet, the man on pole position, is leading this Grand Prix of Belgium on this Sunday of Memorial Weekend. We'll be right back after this. Replay of this first lap accident on the very first corner. It does seem clear now that Alan Prost was pushed off to the right-hand side of the racetrack and came in contact with the barrier, and that's what seems to have damaged the front wing. Berger has also been in the pits getting himself cleaned up. His front wing and front end was damaged. Alan Jones, incidentally, is still in the race. It was Patrick Tamby in the Haas-entered car that was damaged. So therefore, that was the problem that we recognized. It was a great melee there. It was rather difficult to see all of that. The car that you're now looking at is clearly Nelson Piquet, followed now by his own teammate. There's Senna up there. So we've got Piquet, Senna, Mansell, Johansson. And in fact, Mansell has now potentially passed Senna. So we've got Piquet, Mansell, Senna, Johansson. I thought it was Alboreto what was up there, but in fact Johansson. Then Johnny Dumfries, Jacques Lafitte is up there. Alan Jones is up into 7th position. There you see he's into 6th position right now. You see the leaderboard up there.
Well, a great deal of confusion when that actually happens, because everyone was looking forward to a very tight leading bunch, and when that happens, it gives the people who got out of the trouble a chance to get away, a chance to go ahead and drive clearly. They don't have to be watching their mirrors. They can concentrate on getting maximum grip down and actually pulling away from that pack. And that is exactly what two-time world champion Nelson Piquet did. He's taking terrible advantage of this, but the people are catching him up.
Well, the one we've got to look at also perhaps catching up is Keke Rosberg, because Rosberg, in fact, could be in this race at the end of the race. And we have the car you saw in there is the only Belgium in the racetrack right now, and that's Terry Boutsen. He's the 3rd car in your picture as they turn around there. He's driving the USF&G Arrow. That's him right now, obviously being well covered by the Belgium television network here. Of course, we are in Belgium for this Grand Prix. It's his home race, so he's the hometown boy. Everybody's paying a great deal of attention to him today.
You could hardly get around the Barclay USF&G motorhome today with all the Belgians there trying to wish him a bit of good luck, and he certainly got some good luck just in the first corner of the very first lap. He did make it through there clearly, as you saw by this camera card. Now live coming from the circuit up to speed. This is one of the fastest parts of the circuit, 200 miles an hour here. The little gauge you see through the steering wheel is the boost pressure gauge, that going up and down. The tank is to the left of that.
There you see the leading cars coming into La Source. That's Stefan Johansson. Johansson, very talented Swedish driver. The sparks coming out of the car is that it's fully under load. That's the problem at the beginning of the race. Those are titanium skid pads that they've got on that car to stop it from hitting the bottom of the road. That's important to stop it being rubbed away. The order, as we said, is Nelson Piquet, Nigel Mansell, Ayrton Senna, Stefan Johansson in fourth, Johnny Dumfries in fifth, Alan Jones in sixth, Jacques Lafitte, he's in seventh position, and Terry Wilson's up to eighth, the local boy, then Michele Alboretto's ninth. The top 10 is made up by Martin Brundle in the David General car, immediately followed by our camera car, Philip Streff. That's a very good position for them, but we could see things developing as we go along here. Jacques Lafitte up there in seventh position. Arnoux is due to catch up. I think he had a poor start. So is Keke Rosberg coming from behind.
Look at Nelson Piquet there, Jackie. He's just not certainly cruising along, but he has to give full concentration to what's going on in front of him. Here's the West car of Jonathan Palmer, Dr. Jonathan Palmer, a full MD in the pits. Certainly, he had some trouble in the warm-up. At the warm-up this morning, his battery went flat. They were glad that it happened because to have that happen during the race, that's what warm-ups are for, is to have the little things go wrong. But possibly another flat battery, or they were certainly working on the back of the car, not simply just a routine stop. Nelson Piquet coming through the S's against the Ardennes Forest, actually coming up on some back markers now.
Incidentally, Ginzani is also out. He has dropped out of this event, and then you see a slow back marker there as Nelson Piquet goes through this chicane, which is taken in second gear, accelerates out towards the pits.
Across the start-finish line there and the grid.
Down into first gear for this. Very slow corner, only about 30 miles an hour. Now the gap is lengthened, and it does seem to me that is Mansell missing from this?
There he is. He's certainly slowed down there. Both of the Ferrari and the Lotus has gone past Mansell. There's Johnny Dumfries coming through. Alan Jones, the second Ferrari of Alboretto. Ligier following up there, but Mansell may have made a mistake. Jackie may have missed a gear or had a slight spin of some type, but he's lost 2 positions.
As they wind their way down to out of La Source, down to Eau Rouge, very fast one. You see the cars gouging into the road surface there as they go through. Very fast part of the circuit. They're in 5th gear. They engage 6th gear just as they go out of that. Then they reach the fastest part of the circuit up to about 191 miles an hour. The Ferrari catching up there, and the Ferrari attempting to go through there from the high helicopter shot. Nelson Piquet in the meantime winding way through. He's down into a left-hand bend that he takes in 4th gear, accelerating out of that into 6th gear, fast down there, then down into 3rd gear, still in 3rd gear, comes out of this, accelerating into 4th gear, back down into 3rd gear for this now in a 6-speed gearbox.
We're trying to get some sort of report on why Nigel Mansell is slowing. We'll give that to you as soon as we get the information.
Accelerating hard again, where there was about 850 to 900 horsepower, up to 5th, up to 6th gear. An amazing performance from those engines now again as we go back to the camera on board Philip Stress car. See the driver's hands working hard there.
It's a fantastic angle of that shot, isn't it, Jack? You can see him change gear. Now, that's one of the problems of an in-car camera, is that keeping the lens clear. But where did that water come from, Jackie?
Well, I don't know whether that's water to clean the lens or whether it's distortion, but there's a lot of bugs in the lens, that's for sure, because it's in the airstream.
Maybe that was a cleaning solution.
That could easily have been. Nobody told us about that one.
Jackie, you can see how much he's working the wheel. Now, is he turning the wheel to correct that, or is he receiving the vibrations up through the steering rack? Why is the wheel being seesawed back and forth so much? Obviously, he's going through a chicane there, but even down the straightaway, he's constantly just tiny adjustments, or is that absorption from the surface?
That's the kickback from the steering wheel itself through the suspension of the car. There's a lot of movement for a driver. Upper arm strength from a driver is very heavy. You look at any race driver, they're well developed, their upper bodies, and it's because it's almost a complete isometric sort of exercise the whole time. So Nelson Piquet is leading this race, and Ayrton Senna now is in 2nd place. Stefan Johansson and his Ferrari is 3rd. We're at the Belgium Grand Prix, and we'll be right back. looking at the car of Keke Rosberg that's been pulled off the track. He's in trouble. He's on the escape road at the top of the hill. It looks like a major engine failure. Keke Rosberg is no longer in the office. He stepped out of the car. So that is both the tag McLarens not doing nearly as well this race as they expected. So Keke Rosberg had been coming up well. He had got himself to 9th position, and sadly it looks like he's out of it.
Well, that's certainly an unfortunate beginning for the faultless McLarens. They have in the past been so incredibly successful, both engine and chassis-wise, to tune everything to the exact needs of the driver and the circuit. But here in Spa-Francorchamps, their best efforts and luck has certainly run out, with Prost having the problems in the very first corner of the first lap. And now Keke Rosberg, you could actually see quite a huge oil puddle underneath the rear of the car, which certainly gives an indication to a major failure of the tag Porsche designed engine. The tag Porsche designed engine is probably one of the most successful. Here's certainly the Lotus. It's either Johnny Dumfries or Ayrton Senna. It is Johnny Dumfries. In the pits, it's too bad he was all the way up into 5th place. He was unfortunately he did not qualify in Monaco, and he had to do well here for his team and team management and fans. But now the car is being pushed back into the garage area, and it looks like a fatality there relative to the Lotus also.
Well, there is Terry Boutsen. He had a misfire. We had him going past our commentary position with a misfire, and it looks like Terry Boutsen, the local hero, looks like he has had to drop out.
Well, you can see him climbing out of the car there. There is absolutely a terrible situation for the some 80,000 plus Belgians that have come out here to see their one and only Formula One driver following in the steps of the great Jackie Ickx, also from Belgium, someone who you raced with many times, Jackie. But Terry Boutsen is also out of the Belgian Grand Prix.
Well, Terry Boutsen, away he goes, but Nelson Piquet comes into our picture and is in command. Piquet, twice world champion, holding perhaps the situation that many people see him in today as the #1 driver in the world. I think the gap is closing. I think Alan Prost is closing on him on talent, and I think Ayrton Senna is clearly catching up also. But I think potentially with all of the experience, and we just saw Piquet go out of the picture as Senna came into it, and then Stefan Johansson is in that picture also driving the Ferrari. He's now in 3rd place. Nigel Mansell is in 4th place, and the other Ferrari of Alboreto now climbs into 5th place. Ayrton Senna of Brazil, 25 years of age, very smooth, did not qualify nearly as well here as people expected. He was in 4th position in qualifying. The Lotus team have become very, let's say, competitive about their qualifying, and the Brabham comes into the pits. The Brabham is in the pits, and that's the car of course,
Ricardo Patrese,
as there is only one car in this race entered by Brabham.
It seemed like somewhat of just a routine stop, but that's very early. They have Pirelli tires on that car, Jackie. If they've done in a set of tires this early in the race, he may have flat spotted a particular tire trying to stop for that first corner accident, but it doesn't look good right now for Pirelli shod tires.
I don't think he changed any tires. I think there must have been some quick adjustment. Incidentally, the gap between Senna to the leader is 7.72 seconds. So Piquet has pulled out more than 7.5 seconds, and we'll see how that goes.
Genzani, this is his 3rd or 4th pit stop, in and out. They are still moving with some bit of haste. I think I saw a fire extinguisher going towards the end of the car. Ayrton Senna, 2nd place here. Everyone expected him to do one of his magical pole positions here at Spa, but it did not happen. Although he's certainly touted to win and do well at every circuit he ever goes to these days. But at the moment, he is running 2nd place, and I think our leader, Nelson Piquet, is actually pulling away from him.
And there you see Stefan Johansson. By the way, there's a strong American involvement here. His girlfriend's called Charlotte. Her sister, incidentally, Claudia's back in Kentucky. Her birthday today, so that's a sort of family affair. So to Claudia Helmkamp, happy birthday. And Stefan, you're close, perhaps, to be brother-in-law, is doing extremely well, lying 3rd in this Grand Prix in Belgium.
Stefan Johansson is certainly one of the favorite drivers of everyone here. He is from Sweden, Ferrari of Stefan Johansson. He was the gypsy driver at the beginning of last year. Actually went to Rio with no drive whatsoever, took over for the Tyrrell team down there when they had to discipline their driver at the beginning of last season, and gave Stefan that particular ride. And then when Arnoux was released from Ferrari after the Brazilian Grand Prix last year, Stefan showed up at the Portuguese Grand Prix and actually secured the Ferrari ride, a dream of a lifetime, and he's actually done an excellent job for them ever since.
Well, the racetrack showing many of its attributes here as we go around. Nice and wide, of course, and lots of space to run off. The safety piece that we did earlier demonstrated that. Incidentally, talking about safety, the Indianapolis 500, of course, is being run later today. There was an incident and an accident in the carburation day on Thursday, quite a melee involving an accident, a coming together between Dennis Firestone and Roberto Morero's car came in contact, and in fact, George Snyder, who was motoring down innocently through pit lane, was suddenly smacked, and it's affected a great deal there. He's had to drive a backup car. I'm glad he's still in the race because it's his second. He is the second oftenest qualifier in Indianapolis, only second to A.J. Foyt.
What a great statistic.
And Dick Simon, incidentally, will be the oldest driver ever to start the Indy 500. He's starting now because Dennis Firestone's car was too badly damaged, so he is in fact going to take over that entry. So they're going to combine their efforts. Moreno is still going to be in the race, but I'm glad to say that there's apparently very serious potential injuries in that accident which were avoided. And I'm afraid I've got my worries about Indy and the pit lane and so forth. I've viewed them before, so I won't bore you with them now as we're looking at our point of view footage from Philip Streff's car. The Tyrrell, as it drives round here, he's being very gentle and very smooth with it there. Alan Prost, incidentally, is up to 17th position, is catching up quickly, and many cars are dropping out, of course, but Alan never gives up. So the leaders are Piquet, and he's out of it. He's out of control. He's out of control. He's off the racetrack. He's in reverse now. We've just had an accident, as we've seen it from the driver's point of view. The engine has stalled. He's got it going again. The engine's running. The boost has stalled again. You can see the needle going up. It'll be very difficult for Streff to get that thing restarted because those turbos are so fast, and there the car has been pushed away. Has he got it started? No, he hasn't got it started. He cannot be assisted on a restart or he will be disqualified.
He is moving under his own power.
Now, if it has been moved away because of a danger element, the officials allow him to restart. Well, now, we're probably going to be able to show you that in slow motion. In the meantime, Nelson Piquet continues his merry way. He's now 9.5 seconds ahead of Ayrton Senna. He's creaming everybody in this race so far, so he's doing very well indeed. So Piquet, Senna, Johansson, Mansell, Alboreto, Arnoux and Lafitte are in, and we'll be back. We're back at the Belgian Grand Prix, and you're going to see exciting footage. A camera on a car. It was the car of Streff, the Tyrrell. He was setting himself up for one of these corners, and as he goes into the corner, he's got a problem. The car immediately goes out of control. He tries to regain control. He goes into the gravel pit. It's to slow the progress of the car down. It doesn't turn the car upside down. It gets covered in dust. He then gets onto the grass. He luckily doesn't come in contact with any barriers or chain link fences, so luckily he got restarted and back on the racetrack. And we're back looking at the battle that's taking place now, and that battle is between Stefan Johansson and Nigel Mansell in the teammate car of Nelson Piquet, who is still leading this race. Let's have a just look after 10 laps. The leaderboard is Nelson Piquet, Ayrton Senna, Stefan Johansson, Nigel Mansell. That's the battle you're looking at right now. Michele Alboreto is following there. Then there's René Arnoux and Jacques Lafitte, their teammates. Martin Brundle is up to 8th position on the USF&G, on the Data General Tyrrell. Then there's Theo Fabi in the Benetton, and Alan Jones, incidentally, in the Haas entered Ford engine Lola, is up in the top 10. This this is a real good battle now, and this is the battle for 3rd and 4th place. The Ferraris have not done well this year so far. They've had a lot of trouble, and I think everyone would like to see them doing well. And there is Streff's car in the pits. That's the car that you spun off. The camera you can see on the left-hand side of his helmet coming towards us. That's the white blob there. It's on his right, in fact, but it was left of our picture.
Back to Stefan Johansson here in the Ferrari. We have to make note again that Nigel Mansell was actually up into 2nd place, giving the Williams cars a 1 and 2 position here in the early parts of the race. Nigel actually must have made some type of a mistake that dropped him back behind the Ferrari into 4th position. It obviously was not a mechanical failure because he's doing so well now at every part of the circuit. So he has recovered from one little moment of mistake. Here you can see the Ferrari definitely has an advantage when it comes to the power in the straightaways, but come into these chicanes. Now look at Nigel. He's right up Stefan's exhaust. But still, when they get to the straightaway, Stefan puts down the power, and that mighty Ferrari pulls away from him. But watch Nigel on the braking. Gets right up under Stefan. Coming in, that's where the accident was in the very first lap. But now Stefan puts it down. You can see the car wiggling there under acceleration. Some 850, 900 Ferrari horsepowers, a V6 pulling up the hill. And Nigel certainly gets a tremendous tow, but not good enough. Here's a beautiful shot of the Ardennes Forest, and the Ferrari certainly has a power advantage over the Honda. But Jackie, Nigel tries and takes a look on those brakes. That's certainly where he's catching him. But Stefan has the power. It's difficult to get around a car that has more power, Jack.
Well, the other thing is that I heard in the Williams team this morning a little birdie whispering that they're not totally comfortable about fuel consumption. So I think that they're running with a slightly lower boost in their turbo than they would like to, just because of fuel consumption concern. That's with the Honda engine. That applies to Piquet and to Mansell. So Mansell may be just backing off a little bit in his turbo power, and therefore trying to get it up through braking and, of course, driving that wee bit harder through the corners. He's got to watch it, because clearly he has to go and be careful with regards to wheel changes. If he uses up his tires too quickly, he's going to have to come in earlier. Now, the rule in the Williams pit is that Nelson Piquet, because he qualified fastest, has the choice of when to come in for rubber. And Nigel Mansell can only come in, unless he has a puncture, of course, he can only come in after Nelson Piquet has done so. And he will come in 2 laps after Piquet. So I expect Nelson Piquet to come in for laps, for tyres on about lap 18. And we have, of course, now completed 13 laps. So in the next 5 laps, we can expect to see Piquet coming in for rubber.
You know, Jackie, that puts poor old Nigel in a tough position, because Piquet's out front. He's not being pushed from behind. He's not sliding his car. He's being very gentle with his tires. And Nigel, in this battle here, you can see him right up Stefan's exhaust again. Nigel is certainly using his tires a little bit more abusively than his teammate, who has the position of judging when Nigel's going to make the pit stop.
That's correct, but there is a number 1 and a number 2. And when you're the big gun, and Piquet's the big gun in that team, he calls the shots, particularly as he qualified faster. But look at this, we're going to see a pass. Nigel Mansell comes alongside, he bottoms out, he's under braking, he's alongside, he's got the line in, he's done it. So Nigel Mansell puts himself into 3rd position in this Grand Prix of Belgium. He's just passed Stefan Johansson. He did it by turning up the boost on that straight stretch, and you'll find now that he's probably turned the boost down a little bit now that he's got past, thinking that he'll get through there cleanly. And this is him now trying to build up a bit of a lead. He'll drive a little bit more quickly now to try and break that boost. Now, here we see a replay. He comes out, you can see the bottom of the car thrashing against those titanium plates on the road surface here. He does it under braking. He does it cleanly. Johansson doesn't fight him off. He knows he can't do it. To go in there side by side and try to attempt 2 of them in that tight corner would simply not have been possible. So that's Nigel Mansell. Takes over his 3rd position in this race. We've got a few cars out that we'll tell you about. Tamby's out, Prost went into the pits, Berger went into the pits. We've got a few people in trouble, but nobody injured. This is the Belgium Grand Prix. This is John Bisignano and Jackie Stewart back in the Belgian Grand Prix. The new battle that we're going to look at is this man, Ayrton Senna, bright yellow helmet and his black John Player Special Lotus. He is going to be threatened severely by Nigel Mansell. He's only 3 seconds behind him. In fact, just a little less than 3 seconds. He's caught him up like a giant. He's spreading his wings as Nigel Mansell, and he's going to put pressure on Ayrton Senna. This is Grand Prix motor racing. We've got Piquet in the lead, Senna is second, Nigel Mansell is now in third position. Formula One racing, of course, is going to continue. We're going to give you more coverage as ever on ESPN. The Canadian Grand Prix is our next Grand Prix. That'll be live on Sunday, the 15th of June. It'll be 11:50 a.m. Eastern Time, 8:50 Pacific Time. Michele Alboreto, of course, is the defending champion. He set a new record last year at 116 miles an hour. We'll be expecting him to do well. This man would like to do well too, Ayrton Senna. He's due a Grand Prix win again. He, of course, had a good one in Spain, and this is the man he had to fight off in Spain. You may remember that race on ESPN. It was a photo finish, the second closest ever in the history of Grand Prix racing. So Ayrton Senna under a lot of pressure. I might just tell you the car's out of the race while we're watching this, and Piquet's in the pits and getting out the car. The leader is in the pits. Suddenly, we've got a new leader who's Ayrton Senna, with pressure going on from Nigel Mansell. So the two-time world champion and the pole sitter Nelson Piquet in his garage speaking to his Williams mechanics. There's no hope in getting back into the car as far as he was concerned. So here is your leader, Ayrton Senna of Brazil, with a lot of pressure coming from behind, and there's the car that's giving him that pressure, the teammate of Nelson Piquet, Nigel Mansell from England, winner of 2 Grand Prix. He won the European Grand Prix at Brands Hatch last year. He followed it up the very next Grand Prix by winning in South Africa. So that is, in fact, something spectacular. The other cars out of the race, incidentally, I may just tell you, is Keke Rosberg, Patrick Tambay, he's out, Johnny Dumfries is out, Terry Bootson's out, Genzani's out, and Christian Danner's out.
Jackie, at the moment, Senna is 2.3 seconds ahead of Mansell. Well, let's look at one interesting point. In warm-up on Sunday morning, they run the cars as they would in race trim, full tanks and set up for racing, not qualifying. First in that was Keke Rosberg and Prost. Both of them are out of the race. The third fastest in that morning warm-up was Nigel Mansell. So he, in race trim, was faster this morning. Nelson Piquet, also out of the race, was fourth. And Ayrton Senna, something we haven't seen out of him since he left the Tolman team, was all the way down in 10th place. So certainly Nigel Mansell has an excellent race setup. And Senna has not shown his normal speed here at Spa all weekend long. In fact, you see him starting to bang on curbs. If everyone remembers his spectacular show in Australia last year, where he not only banged on them, but he actually drove over them, it looks like he may become a little bit rattled here, but he certainly has been in a tight situation like this before. But Nigel Mansell is following a rabbit that he has followed before, and he's going to do everything he can to catch that rabbit. Alain Prost, the person who had the trouble in the very first corner there, the Marlboro McLaren.
Well, Alain Prost, incidentally, just to give you an indication, right now is back in 13th position. He's fighting his way back. He will, you know, it's possible for him to pick up a World Championship point before the end of this race, and that's important for him because the World Championship, he is leading at the present time. Ayrton Senna is lying second, so Senna's looking to try and pick up 9 points for winning this race. The World Championship point system is 9 points for first, 6 points for second, 4 points for third, 3 points for fourth, 2 points for fifth, and then 1 point for sixth position. So, of course, it's very important for Alain Prost on the long haul. And look how he's catching those cars up, because that's Mark Surer now that he's got in his sights. And he, Mark Surer, is in 12th position, and he's doing him right now. He's got Surer.
Well, Mark certainly was a gentleman there, Jackie, and let Alain through. He knows that Alain in the McLaren is certainly a little bit faster than the A8 Arrows car, so he saw that what was coming was going to be something that he could not do anything to stop, and he moved over and let Alain Prost. Let's see if the Data General car will do the same. In fact, the Data General car is coming in the pits there.
Yep, he's coming in for rubber, and I think you might see Nigel Mansell coming in for rubber very shortly also. The reason for that is that he will probably use his intelligence. I think Senna's pulled away a little bit of an advantage there, but Senna has a habit of staying out a little little too long with regards to being on rubber. That, incidentally, is Streff, the car that we saw spin off earlier. He's come in and got rubber changed, so he's on good years. He's had his tire changed.
That's his second tire change since the accident. He may have damaged something there, Jackie.
So Ayrton Senna. Now, in Monte Carlo, he stayed out too long on rubber and lost a great deal of ground because of that. He has this belief that his smooth driving will allow him to go longer on tires than some of the competition. And I think that that might worry him. Now, he has taken out a handsome advantage on Mansell right now.
2.3.
There's the 2.3 second. He was tighter than that. But Mansell, I think, will come in before Senna. That would be my bet at this stage. And we're getting around the time that I would expect Nigel Mansell to do his pit stop. If he does that, he will go out in a car set up to do the rest of the race.
Remember, Jackie, in Spain, we were in the same position, except Nigel Mansell was ahead, and there, in the pits, is
René Arnoux.
René Arnoux in the Lotto-sponsored Ligier, but in Spain, Nigel Mansell was criticized for staying out too long on his tires, and actually, in the analogy after the race, you and I spoke about if he was able to stop a few laps ahead, then he could have certainly closed that very 1/100th of a second that he was beaten by.
He could have done it. So tire changing here is very important indeed. That's a long step for René Arnoux, a long time in the pits. He's not going to win any prizes for that. He's got something wrong with him. They're looking in at the drive shaft on the right rear of the car, left rear of your picture. They're busy looking at the transmission. I think he's got a transmission problem. They're turning the wheel to see if one of the drive shafts, perhaps a universal joint, is giving trouble. But he is not. That's not a scheduled pit stop for that amount of time.
Let me ask you, Jackie, in a team like the Williams, who makes the final decision when a driver comes in like this?
The driver. The driver makes the decision. Goodyear, Lee Gogg, who's the head of Goodyear's racing in Formula One, he decides when he recommends that they come in, and then it's left for the driver himself to make up his mind when he feels the performance of his car is going off. You can see how close they are right now. This is lining up to be an extremely good Belgian Grand Prix. Stay with us, because I think you're going to see a lot of excitement. We'll be back. And Nigel Mansell comes into the pits. It's 20 laps for him. He did a couple of laps more than I anticipated. The Williams team on parade. They've done a good stop as ever. It's still running the clock, but it was about 7-point-something seconds. Ayrton Senna, as I anticipated, has stayed out longer than Nigel Mansell. Incidentally, the lead was down to less than 2 seconds before he came into the pits, so he will have to now play catch-up. Now, Senna is going to stay out for how long, who knows, but he's not going to do the full distance. Incidentally, a little update on a young man called Alain Prost. You saw him at the back of the field on the very first lap, with the first lap incident on the first corner. Martin Brundle, incidentally, is now in the pits. Alain Prost is up to 9th position, and in fact, by the fact that Brundle has stopped right now, he probably has gone ahead of him. He has. So Martin Brundle leaves the pits, and Alain Prost is up to 9. Be careful. Prost is going to pick up World Championship points in this race. He's a goer.
Let's see if Ayrton Senna does come into the pits this time. I noticed during that break that he actually stayed behind Streif for 2 laps. So Streif was on new tires, and Ayrton is on these troubled or beginning to become troubled tires. So there was a good example of what new rubber can do when Ayrton Senna took 2 laps to get behind Streif. There's the Benetton car of Fabi in the pits. They're doing something to the rear wing there.
Yeah, it's
a bit loose, but they must be tight enough.
He let the fire go out. He stopped the engine. He refired it. He's got it going again. You saw the flames splurting out the rear end of the car there.
These pits here are not the best for fast tire stops. There's Ayrton Senna now waving his fist at something. Why? This is the last chicane before coming into the pits. Let's see if he does pull in.
He's in the pits. He's in the pits. He's pulled off, and here he comes.
Crew running across. The car being put up on the jacks. Ayrton has to keep the car engine running. The tire men, one American there doing so well on the left rear, Kenny. Bob Dance putting him out. It looked like quite an efficient stop, but still, let's see where Nigel Mansell comes up on all this now.
I don't think he...
right there, Nigel Mansell went around Ayrton Senna. Right now, Nigel Mansell is leading the Belgian Grand Prix.
So we have a leader on the track, and in fact, right on the button is Nigel Mansell. He's put our little show together very well. Nigel Mansell and Ayrton Senna, they can see each other very clearly. And there they go into the fastest part of the racetrack. There still to appear is Ayrton Senna, the long straight, braking heavily from 6th to 3rd gear. And these are the gear changes that Nigel gave me this morning. He's in 3rd gear right now. He's up into 4th gear. Down into 2nd gear. This is a slow corner for him. He's in 2nd gear right now. He's up into 3rd. Accelerating to 4th and 5th. We had the opportunity, John spoke to Nigel Mansell earlier on today. Some of his comments.
We had a great battle last year here with Prost, and that was exciting to everyone. Are you looking forward to the two of you going at it again?
Yeah, you know, it was, I mean, Ayrton won the race, and we had a good battle with Ayrton, myself and Alan, and I think Nelson, myself, and those two, and maybe one other, will be fighting for the front.
The Honda powered on these long straightaways. Are you equally as powerful as the other cars?
I'd say equally, but we haven't got any advantage that everyone said that we seemed to have at the beginning. If you look at the straight line speeds, the BMW are by far the quickest down the straight. It's just a question what boost people can run in the race, because it's going to be very close on fuel again, and really we'll get the story on warm-up on Sunday, not even tomorrow.
A thoughtful Nigel Mansell as he conducts his race around here, drawing out a considerable lead. Keep in mind that he had one more lap on Ayrton Senna, so the tyres were up to temperature. He was right into the groove again. Ayrton Senna, coming into our picture there, had to warm up his tyres, get the feel of that new rubber, and they are both running conservatively on this. So look at the speed of that car going over that hill. That is a 5th gear corner. They're very fast indeed. A different line, incidentally, through that corner for Senna. And there you see high from the helicopter. There's the Goodyear blimp here, and the helicopter getting sky shots. Large crowd of Belgians turned out for this race in ideal conditions in the Ardennes Mountains. This race is celebrating its 65th birthday this weekend. The Belgian Grand Prix started in 1921 around the big Francorchamps circuit. Very large in comparison. This is only a 6.9 kilometer racetrack. The old one was 14 kilometers. It was about an 8-mile racetrack, 8 miles and a bit. It was a tiger, I tell you.
I tell you, looking back on some of those great battles here at the Spa track, you mentioned earlier Dan Gurney celebrated the American win here in the American-built Eagle as Stefan Johansson is closing on the Data General car, the camera car. Here we have a leaderboard. It certainly shows Stefan Johansson leading at this point. Could this be Stefan Johansson? He has not come in for tires yet, Jeff. Stefan Johansson, we have been just shown a leaderboard by the Belgian TV putting Stefan Johansson in the lead. The people with the computers do not have it that way, but it's certainly an interesting leaderboard there. Going back, Stefan Johansson coming through the chicane. Let's see if he goes in the pits. This is the chicane just before the pits. He looks like he's slowing down, and he does take it into the pits. The Ferraris are quite at the far end of the pits, so he has to come to a quick stop and accelerate somewhat slowly out of the pits with a little bit of caution. Ferrari not known for explicit pit stops, but they've got a good one going here. 7.7 seconds. I think that's one of the best Ferrari pit stops I've ever seen.
Well, Ferrari in the past used to be laughed at because they all got a little excited and everybody thought it was a sort of Japanese fire drill, but nowadays they've got very slick indeed. And in fact, Ferrari are very clean. They've got a lot of experience. So Stefan Johansson joins the track again, but this is the man that we're looking at there, and that is Nigel Mansell, car number 5 with the Honda engine. And we've got a man now who has to keep a cool head. His teammate Nelson Piquet, the earlier leader, stopped and got out of the office for the day. Our leader is Nigel Mansell, and we'll be back. Well, you see the man in second place. That's Ayrton Senna. He's fighting to close the gap on Nigel Mansell, who's leading. And there's Ayrton Senna right now. He's got a gap to make up at 3.141 seconds. Known to be a smooth driver, a very safe driver in his own mind, although Nigel Mansell has also had little contretemps with him in the past. We've talked a lot about safety, in fact, in this program so far. An important part of it is driver protection. John Bisignano had the opportunity to look and see how drivers looked after themselves.
Still the greatest fear of every race car driver, no matter what class it is fire. Now, in Formula One, there are many safety features built into the car, actually, to protect drivers against fire. Onboard extinguishers, a rubber fuel cell that holds the fuel in case the car has a heavy impact. But the last area of protection is in the driver's clothing itself. Nomex underwear is worn both top and bottom. The suit is made of 4 layers of Nomex. The combination of the underwear and the suit should give a driver up to 25 seconds in a hot gasoline-type fire. That should be enough time to allow the fire crews to reach him and hopefully extinguish the flames. Also, oxygen is fed directly into the helmet so that the driver can keep breathing even when the fire is consuming the oxygen in the cockpit of the car. You know, I've always wanted to drive a Ferrari. Let's go racing. Stefan, I hope you get this thing dry cleaned before the race.
Well, Raffengata, the only Dutch driver in the pits right now. He's having a very slow pit stop. He's chatting with his team manager as we look at this, as we go back onto the track. Well, that safety piece by John there. I hope it's Johansson in that Ferrari out there, John, and it's not you. I mean, have you got a double?
I wish it was, as Rene Arnoux comes back in the pits, unfortunately for Rene. He had a bit of a slow stop before. They were definitely correcting more on the car than tires, and here he is up to 9 seconds already, 10. You saw how well the Ferrari pit stop was, and when actually the Lotus stopped, and that's when Nigel Mansell got in front of Senna, that goes to show how important pit stops and pit crews are to Formula One victories or positions or prize monies and whatever. Now that coming very slowly into the pits, Martin Brundle's car looks like he may not even be under power. He's pointing it to park it in the garage, he says. Ken Tyrrell with the Data General sponsored Tyrrell car, certainly number 3, not having a good day, and Philippe Strife, Martin Brundle, he was running in 6th place. It would have been a good point for the team. And there you see Ken Tyrrell with the earphones on there, and the blue flag being waved at the Brabham of Patrese as Mansell goes up the hill, right past the camera, right to the edge of the curbing. At that particular point on the circuit, it would have been difficult for the Brabham to get out of the way. There's really only one line until they get up on the straightaway. But Senna is blasting past Patrese now, coming in under the braking to that fast chicane. These are some of the fastest chicanes, Jackie, in motor racing. Chicanes are actually designed to slow cars down. These are actually more or less quick rights and lefts than chicanes.
Well, this is an interesting race because Nigel Mansell and Ayrton Senna don't get on well together. They really are running into each other a lot. They've crashed into each other many times. They don't talk in the pits. They're very against each other in many different ways. And here they are faced on the track once again for what looks like being a sort of grandstand finish. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. Senna is a very, very aggressive driver, and yet Mansell himself is, to say the least, determined. So this could develop into something quite unusual. Incidentally, in Monte Carlo, the rear suspension of the Lotuses failed, and it was a real problem for them. And they went to the Paul Ricard circuit to do some testing, and they failed again. And in fact, this race is being run with the last year, the 1985 rear suspension unit in it, because they were concerned that we're going to have mechanical failures in such a fast circuit as this. So it's of concern to them, although the car clearly is working very well, and you can see how close he is now getting to Nigel Mansell.
If you remember down in Australia, down under, Jackie, when Ayrton Senna in the, not the first corner, but to the second corner, took Nigel Mansell off, and that was captured by Patrick Tambay's in-car camera. And that is not only the first time that they have had, as you say, the same disputed territory, but now coming past the old Spa pits, so many classical cars have pulled out of those pits for fine victories, as we were saying earlier. Up that hill, you can see the downforce of these cars as they come around that S corner. And there you can see the back end of the Lotus getting just a little bit twitchy. Now, when you talk about twitchy, you're talking about twitching at 165 or more miles an hour. And the driver must make an instantaneous millisecond correction to keep the car straight in line and get the power back down on the ground. Nigel Mansell, the thing that you were talking about earlier, Jack, it's almost the difference of temperament between a Brit from Northern England and a hot Brazilian, Mansell and Senna.
Well, now it's down to 1.6 seconds, that lead that Mansell has, so it's going to be very tentative for him to keep that. Another car, yet another, comes into the pits, and we'll be right back after this.
1.6.
This is Jackie Stewart and John Bisignano. We're back at the Grand Prix of Belgium. You're seeing Gerhard Berger and Alain Prost. Alain Prost had a first lap incident, has been in the pits to have it new bodywork fitted to his car. He's also been in for fresh rubber. Berger has also been in the pits. He had front bodywork helped and also a steering arm straightened out or replaced. And now they're head-to-head in the racetrack. Just a lap or two ago, they were in 8th and 9th position. The man you're looking at now is still very much in first position. That is Nigel Mansell, driving his Williams with the Honda power plant. Got some Canon pictures being taken of him. The fastest tour, or fastest lap, is by Senna. Senna's putting on the power, and that's the man there in the black JPS Lotus. The Brazilian trying to hold the honours of his country up now that Piquet, who earlier led the race, had to withdraw. Looked like a major engine problem. Keke Rosberg also had to withdraw because of a major engine problem. There have been many retirements in the race. 3 of those were almost totally out because of a first corner, first lap incident. So here we come. Out of the race is Rosberg. Patrick Tambay came out in that first lap incident. So did Dumfries go out. Boutsen's out. Kinzani's out. Danner's out. Piquet's out. René Arnoux is out. Nannini is now out, and so is Martin Brundle. Spa has been a place of a lot of happenings. We've had some announcements, incidentally, here. One of the announcements is that the British Grand Prix from next year will take place for 5 consecutive years at Silverstone. Brands Hatch has been dropped from the Grand Prix calendar at the present time as of 1987, and incidentally Brands Hatch has just been bought over by a private investor just a few days before that announcement was made, which must make him rather sad. The other thing is that they've announced, because of the accident of Elio De Angelis at the Paul Ricard circuit some 2 weeks ago, that the French Grand Prix will be held on the shortened circuit of Paul Ricard when that French Grand Prix takes place in July. And that is the Brabham that's come into the pits right now. Riccardo Patrese getting new rubber on. This is the second time he's been in for some rubber to be fitted. The Brabham mechanics, not a fast pit stop, 12, 13 seconds as the clock starts.
This is the very low slung Brabham. You can physically see that the car is not so much closer to the ground as the other cars, but it is a lower profile, hopefully giving greater aerodynamics both for top speed and for downforce. The car has not worked out exactly as well as they would like. The one thing that is always the most important thing as far as top speed is power, and what they hope to do after the terrible accident of Elio De Angelis is restrict the power. The slower the cars, the safer they are in many respects, as Alain Prost is gaining on the Benetton, as you can see. They hope to do this in a couple ways. Alain Prost comes in under braking, a nice clear pass through the chicane. They hope to bring the engine horsepower down to around 600 horsepower. Several ways of doing that. Either pop-off valves, air restrictors that limits the amount of air that can be sucked into the engine, or bringing it down to a capacity of 1,000 cc's. Jackie, I cannot see see them changing the 1500cc formula down to 1000 cc's. That would be tremendous expense to the engine builders that have invested in 1500 cc's, but certainly pop-off valves are very popular at Indianapolis, and air restrictors have worked in other formulas.
Well, it may be that they'll go to 1200 cc capacity. As we look at our leaderboard, Mansell, Senna, Alboreto has passed Johansson, as you can see there. There's talk today about putting in, and here's the replay of the past of Alain Prost. He did it very cleanly and very maturely. He left a lot of space there, no entangling of wheels here. He has about 3 meters to spare there as he gets inside Berger. You can see he's snookered him. He's put in a position that Berger really can't retaliate, and he hardly goes over the curb, particularly on the way out. Very cleanly done, Alain Prost. He is a master at going faster. Getting back to that horsepower question. There's talk in the paddock here today that they'll bring it down to about 1200 cc's, 1.2 litres. If that happens, apparently Ferrari would be very happy. If they put in a valve of some kind to restrict the power, as we've seen it happen in Indianapolis, a pop-off valve, for example, it may be more complicated with twin turbos, for example, that take place. A single pop-off valve would be easier on a 4-cylinder engine like the BMW than it may be on the Ford engine or the Ferrari engine or the Renault engine. So it'll be very interesting to see how the rule makers come to this 600 horsepower limit that they're talking about.
One other thing that less horsepower would do, it would hopefully reduce the cost of running these engines. These motors cost nearly $100,000 each, and you can't get more than a couple of hours of running out of them before they have to be rebuilt at between $40,000 and $60,000 each rebuild. That's if it doesn't even blow up. That's if the motor runs smoothly and clearly for 2 hours or say a few hundred miles. So again, if you have less power going through these engines, you may get back to hopefully the more comfortable Cosworth days when the V8 Cosworth 3-liter normally aspirators could actually do 600 miles before a rebuild, and all the teams are looking for ways to reduce the tremendous budgets that it takes to run Formula One.
Well, Nigel Mansell now is opening up his gap. He's got it to more than 3 seconds. It came to under 2 seconds. It was down to about 1 point something, and there you can see the difference between them. It's a long shot from a camera a long way away, but it's more than 3 seconds. As the top 10 after 30 laps is Mansell, Senna, Alboreto, Johansson, Lafitte, Jones. Alain Prost is up to 7th, Fabi is 8th, Surer is 9th, 10th is De Cesaris, and we'll be right back after this.
One thing similar between kart Indianapolis type racing and Formula One is that weight means lower lap times. The lighter the car, the better weight distribution, and hopefully the lower lap time. Lotus is extremely proud of this particular section of body panels, because it's not body panels, it's one complete piece. The largest piece of carbon fiber, I think, both in kart racing and in Formula One. Now, to look at it, you might think that it could take 2 people to lift it up, but the mechanics here tell me that it's a mere 17 pounds.
There was a heavyweight talking about lightweight bodywork as the car of Alboreto flashes through our picture here. We have Alain Prost, the story of the race at the present time, is catching up Alain Jones. Alain Jones at the moment is in 6th position, which would give him a World Championship point. That is not him, that is Michele Alboreto in the 2nd Ferrari. Michele Alboreto, of course, at the moment is lying in 3rd position. He's been a sleeper. Nobody's been paying much attention to Mr. Alboreto. In the meantime, he's been continuing his very smooth way. And there is Rottengatter in the Zach Speed car. He has decided that it's called for today. The fire marshals are looking for an extinguisher, perhaps.
If you remember, Jackie, when he came in the pits, he was trying to motion to his team about something around the back of the car. They more or less gave the wing a good wiggle, and out he went again. But he was trying to communicate something around the back of the car, and it looks like whatever was troubling him has maybe failed completely and now cost his retirement.
Michele Alboreto, the English press have called him the Black Arrow, but Alan Jones comes into the pits for rubber. Alan Jones. Now, Alain Prost, in the meantime, has passed him now on the racetrack. And, of course, he's already stopped for rubber. So, therefore, Alan Jones has lost his 6th position to Alain Prost, which means that Prost picks up a World Championship point if he goes no further than 6th position. Alan Jones rejoins the race. And that, incidentally, is important in the World Championship. World Championships are won by half points in some conditions, because Alain Prost lost his first World Championship that he could have won, really, by half a point to his teammate Niki Lauda. And that was, of course, the 1984 World Championship.
Exactly. So Alain Prost is one to go after every point he gets, and you can see that Lotus still getting loose at the top of the hill. You know, to put a new suspension or an old suspension on a new car, like Jackie described the Lotus team had to do just before this race, certainly can give an unbalanced feature to the driving that the driver has to deal with. Especially, this is probably the first time that car has gone this distance with the combined situation of rear suspension from last year and new suspension up front this year. And Jackie, on the left and right front tires of Nigel Mansell, you can certainly definitely pick up some wear right down the middle of that tread. Try and take a good look at it and see if that is going to bring him in again before this is over.
And Philip Streff comes into the pits yet again. His troubles started with a spin out that we all saw as he was carrying a camera which has taken shock since he spin off the racetrack. It hasn't worked since.
It's embarrassing to spin, but to spin with the camera car is a double embarrassment.
Well, he managed it for us. ESPN must have been paying him a lot of money to do it, because he spun in practice as well while he had it on board, and then he did it in the race. That was quite impressive, and we do thank him for our wonderful coverage. Nevertheless, they go through these Ardennes mountains. Alain Jones there is about to be lapped, and there you see Fabi about to be lapped also. Fabi, of course, had pole position at Indianapolis, and incidentally, for those watching and interested, we heard that it's raining in Indianapolis. So that may delay the start of this race as Nigel Mansell laps Fabi as he goes round the slowest corner on the racetrack, and there is Senna in the picture. Senna is in 2nd position. Nigel Mansell still leads the Grand Prix of Belgium. The car you're looking at is Jonathan Palmer. The good doctor is in the pits. He's had problems. He's not in the leaderboard at all. He's not in contention. He was lying 14th. So therefore, he is not really a force to be reckoned with in this event. The people up top are Mansell, Senna, Alboreto, Johansson, Lafitte. Alain Prost has got himself a point in the World Championship right now. Alan Jones, Fabi, Surer, De Cesaris, Patrese, Berger, Streff, and Palmer. And there's a good battle going. There's Alan Jones getting in the way. Oh, come on, Mansell, take your time. You're leading the motor race. Don't go in such a hurry. There's no rush now.
There wasn't one blue flag being waved down the pit lane there. You must understand that these drivers, especially when they're running that close to each other, are still battling for positions, and what happens is they cannot see the car 2 cars back. They are certainly aware of the 1 car just behind them, but Nigel Mansell can be totally blocked by the car in between the pack of 3 there, and you almost saw it on the replay.
Here's this replay. Now, Nigel Mansell, in my opinion, has been too urgent here. He tries to go one way, then he goes another way. Now, he could have got himself in a problem there. When you're leading a motor race, the maturity of a Prost or a Piquet would not have made him do such extreme movements, because any of those drivers, if they had moved the wrong way, could have involved him in a situation which could potentially have taken him out of the race. That's where it's very important to say, hang on a second, let me be mature, take your time. Now, you can see that the blue flag was being waved there to Berger. It was that car along with Alan Jones that you saw Mansell getting involved with a few moments ago. Mansell's now got a clear track ahead of him. Alan Jones and the Ford engine has entered the car. And I'm sure in Indianapolis they'll all be watching this coverage. There'll be the Penskes, there'll be the Mecums, there'll be the Hasses. They'll all be watching from their suites. And this is the car of Alan Jones, the red car there, and the leader is ahead of us. That's Nigel Mansell. Senna's second, Alboreto's third. We'll be coming back for the final laps of the Grand Prix of Belgium after this. High above the Spa-Francorchamps circuit, the Grand Prix of Belgium is taking place. We're looking from our helicopter shot at Ayrton Senna. Mr. Senna's just gone through our picture. And there is Berger and Fabi, teammates in the Benetton team, not in contention. There you see the car of Alan Jones, and Alboreto seems to have caught. And there is Alboreto having a little look. There he is, Alboreto, and Alan Jones is behind that. Or is it Stefan?
Stefan Johansson.
Stefan Johansson is coming up
teammate.
to threaten Alboreto. These are on the same laps. They're really close to each other. Now here is a situation I wonder what will occur. Stefan Johansson is clearly the number 2 driver in the Ferrari team. The young Swede, grateful to be in Ferrari a year ago. Now he is threatening his number 1, the Black Adder. He is Michele Alboreto. And now Johansson was having a look at him, getting under braking at the end of the fast straight stretch. Alboreto now wants to finish third in this Grand Prix of Belgium. It's been about 10 races since Alboreto has finished a race. He's been in real bad trouble. He wouldn't like to give away his third place because, of course, that would be 4 points in the World Championship. But Stefan Johansson is certainly a heavy threat to him. Enzo Ferrari, the Commendatore, will be sitting in Maranello watching this performance, and I wonder what he's thinking. He's always been a man to put one driver against the other. He's always had race politics within drivers.
Well, of course, Jackie, he actually, as we see one of the Minardis stopping there, that is Andrea Di Trezza's of Italy. He was really not in top contention, running 10th at the time, helping the marshals push the car out of the way. Michele Alboreto was brought into the Ferrari team by Conduttore Ferrari, especially to try and make a world champion, an Italian world champion, in the Ferrari team. Locking up a brake there, certainly feeling the pressure of Stefan Johansson, going wide up on the curb. Stefan Johansson definitely got why they switched us off that particular shot there, except to see Zach Speed being overtaken by our leader. We will try and get back to the Ferrari. We have to apologize. This is the National Belgium feed. They are not ESPN directors or cameramen. But we were saying Stefan Johansson, the brave young Ferrari lion, coming in to a second seat in Ferrari that has a tremendous amount of pressure. Ferrari traditionally putting pressures on their drivers to the point where even this early in the season, they have said that they are thinking of new drivers next year. Stefan Johansson and I talking about that earlier this week. 6 tours left until the end of this particular Grand Prix, with Nigel Mansell pacing himself, looking at his fuel gauge, trying to get everything working right down to the last second so that he can maintain this lead over Ayrton Senna. But Jackie, you know what Ferrari is like as far as pressure on their drivers, and what would be the team rules. Now we know that McLaren has said drivers can race each other for points. Last year we saw tremendous battles between Niki Lauda and Alain Prost, racing each other in Holland right down to almost a photo finish. But would Stefan Johansson be in trouble by saying that, here we see the difference between Mansell and 3 seconds, but that's still quite a bit of time in Formula One. Would Stefan Johansson be in trouble for passing Alboreto in a Ferrari team?
I think he might be. If Alboreto is going a lot slower, I think it might be all right.
But
Alboreto is about 16 seconds behind Senna, and I think seniority may come into play. And he is an Italian in an Italian car with an Italian team manager and an Italian owner. I'd rather think that it might be that way, unless, of course, he waves him through, and he could wave him through.
Well, he didn't look like he was ready to wave him through there on that last braking situation. Must be tough for a young, talented driver like Johansson to know that he has the opportunity to pass, and he is not allowed to do it because of team rules.
It is, but that's the rule of the game. You know, you have to sometimes bow to seniority. So that's what's happening right now. Let's wait and see what develops. That's Alan Jones coming into a picture with Ayrton Senna attempting to get past him and, of course, put a lap on him. He has already been lapped once, and he will just be lapped in the second time round this 4-mile circuit in just a few moments, I think. Senna sitting higher than usual in that car, I would dare to say, sitting up high in the car. Alan Jones I've always thought, sits a little too high in his car, but Senna today seems to be further up in the cockpit than I've seen him for a few races.
You know, Jackie, this is only the 4th outing for that particular Ford motor. It certainly shows a good reliability factor here, where the Ford is able to go and run, well, maybe a lap behind due to circumstances, but here, this late in the race, Senna cannot get past Alan Jones, with Senna with the Renault engine that has been race proven for many, many years.
And we've just been told out of camera that Johansson has passed Alboreto. So we have Stefan Johansson now in 3rd position. He's got up there, so there is a new development. The order now being Nigel Mansell, Ayrton Senna, and Stefan Johansson, with Alboreto in 4th place, Jacques Lafitte is in 5th, and Alain Prost is in 6th. Now this shot is, I think, from the Goodyear blimp. It's very high, as you can see. Just a shot down there of the chicane.
Alan Jones and Senna. Senna cannot get around Alan Jones.
I think Senna must be paying attention to his fuel consumption now, because he's certainly dropping back. He's Alan Jones moved over. Well done, Alan. The Australian has shown very good manners, as he is clearly quite quickly allowing Senna to pull away there. And
he's actually slowed also, Jackie.
Yeah, it may be that he has a little problem. But Senna now has got a clear track, but he's more than 4 seconds, nearly 5 seconds behind Nigel Mansell.
Let's see what the Brazilian decides to do. This is the point where he has been tempted to pull up the boost. You saw them both in that picture. You saw the straightaway separated them. You'll see the Black John Player's special car trying to do everything it can to catch Nigel, but Senna in the past has turned up that boost and run out of gas. Last year at the British Grand Prix, he would not forego being passed by Alain Prost, and he kept turning up the boost until he ran out of gas just before the finish, and therefore scored no points whatsoever. Alboreto coming through with the Ferrari. Camera panning back to the Benetton teams. We have teammates here racing each other. There goes Fabi through the chicane, followed by his teammate Berger, who certainly had high hopes. Those are the first cars that are shod by Pirelli in this race.
Well, the Benettons are not really in this race really seriously. They're fairly far down. Berger's in 11th place and Fabi's in 8th, actually. There's a difference of a lap between those two cars, so there's not much of a race going on there. But I think that the race that's going up top, Johansson's pulled away from Alboreto by more than 2 seconds now. And I don't think Nigel Mansell is going to be severely threatened in this race unless something strange happens. Fuel consumption could play a part. Now it's down to the spectators to bite their nails. A lot of interesting people come to these races. Ennis Ireland, by the way, is one of the journalists here. He writes for Road and Track. Ennis Ireland, incidentally, held the lap record at the old Spa circuit for about 2.5 years in the 60s. This is the place where Jim Clark won 4 Grand Prix. It was through 1962, 3, 4, 5. He won those great races here. It was the circuit where the McLaren won its first ever Grand Prix in the hands of Bruce McLaren. Dan Gurney won the race for the American Eagle here. I won the Belgian Grand Prix, but not at this racetrack. I was leading it once and ran out of petrol on the final lap, unfortunately, which is not unknown at this track. And with only 3 laps to go, we're going to have to be very careful at what the fuel situation is in the Honda. I spoke to Nigel Mansell no more than 15 minutes before the beginning of the race, and he wasn't at all comfortable with the fuel consumption figures.
Well, he can begin to back off slightly here, but he has to be very careful looking in his rear view mirrors and also collecting in all the information he can from his pits. Of course, his pits are letting him know exactly what type of a lead he has, if Senna's catching him or not. Nigel Mansell, 31 years old, from Midlands, England, brought to Formula One by the great and late Colin Chapman into Team Lotus. Stefan Johansson there, you don't even see Alboreto in that shot any longer. So even though he did go ahead and put a pass on his teammate, the fact that he can pull away and go ahead into 3rd spot in a respectable position has to get him out of trouble with the Conduttore. You have Stefan Johansson is 19 seconds behind Senna at this point, so it doesn't look like we're going to have a huge battle unless fuel comes into this between 2nd and 3rd.
Okay, let's just run over the top 10 at the present time. Nigel Mansell, Ayrton Senna, Stefan Johansson, Alboreto and the other Ferrari, Jacques Lafitte, the first of the Pirelli runners, the rest are all running in Goodyear. Alain Prost in 6th position, he's not going to catch Lafitte incidentally. Alan Jones is 7th, Theo Fabi is 8th, 9th is Mark Thurer, and 10th is Riccardo Patrese. He's in the top 10. He's driving the Brabham, and of course the sad news just 10 days ago was that Elio De Angelis lost his life in an accident at the Paul Ricard circuit during private testing driving a Brabham. So there's only one car in the race. It's running 10th right now.
Well, of course, Jackie, another sad accident, not at the Paul Ricard circuit, but in between the Paul Ricard circuit and the airport earlier this year, was team owner, developer, and giant of Frank Williams Racing. Frank Williams had a terrible road accident, rolling the car off the road, and suffered a very serious injury to his spine, which for many, many weeks totally paralyzed him. We are very glad to report to everyone that is concerned about the leader of this team that he has regained motion of his head. He is breathing without a respirator. He also has slight movements in both forearms and one shoulder. So it seems like after some very, very difficult weeks in intensive care, Frank will be released from intensive care. Alan Jones definitely was slowing and is now pulling off the track. But this has to be the best thing that for Frank Williams to be able to recover this type of performance by his team. 2 laps to go as Alan Jones, unfortunately, you know, he may have run out of gas here, Jackie. That's what you were talking about. These are the laps where everyone thinks they may be set. No, actually, there's a...
No, he's looking down.
He's looking down front there.
Low somewhere. There's a problem in his car, I think. I think that is the problem. Alan Jones out of this race. The Australian driven a very good race indeed. Of course, a past world champion. We're coming up towards only 1 lap to go in this race. You spoke about Frank Williams. It would be wonderful for Nigel Mansell to win this race for Frank. I went to see Frank last Wednesday, or a week past Wednesday actually. He's in great spirits. He's adapting very well to the problems that he knows he's going to face. That so many people who have found themselves paralyzed for life have had to deal with, and Frank is now going through that adjustment period. There you see the top 6 for the present time, and of course Nigel Mansell comes in now with 1 lap to go. He's got only 1 lap in this race to complete. It's of course 4.312 miles around this, and Philippe Streff touches behind him there as sparks fly out of the Williams car as it bottoms out on its titanium skids. It goes now to the fastest part of the racetrack. He's up into 6th gear, and his 6-speed box about 192 miles an hour on this lap he'll be doing. Drops it into 3rd gear for this chicane. Goes through in 3rd. Grabs 4th gear as we look at a vacant racetrack, waiting for Ayrton Senna to come along. And Senna is now dropped to about 10 seconds behind. Considerable amount of time behind. And there's 1 more lap to go. Senna will have to be satisfied with 2nd place, but keep in mind he's got to go all the way around. It's now 14.269 seconds. Stefan Johansson is 13.5 seconds behind Senna. So unless something untoward occurs, that's how we're going to see the first 3 finish here. But there's a lot of hills, uphill sections still to come, and if there is anything to be low on fuel, it will show itself as one of the arrows come into the pits with only 1 lap to go.
He's minus a wheel.
He's running without a wheel on. Well, now we've seen that a few times. Stick on the wheel, fellas. There we... I hope, well, probably a lot of damage has been done to that hub. I don't know how he could have lost it. It may not have been tightened up correctly during one of his pit stops.
He should at least try and get back out on the track and finish the final lap, though.
Yep, he is.
He's going back out.
Oh, he stalled the engine, and they can't push him. They can't push him. Blah, blah, blah. Not allowed.
Alan Reese. Alan Reese saying, sorry, folks, that's as far as this car is going today.
The man on the right-hand side held his hand out there.
Nigel Mansell coming through the last chicane, coming up. It is uphill to the start-finish line, but he looks like he's going to be the winner of the Belgian Grand Prix. Nigel Mansell takes the checkered flag and wins the Belgian Grand Prix for Frank Williams. You see the crew waving the Union Jack and the rising sun of the Japanese flag. They're taking the car straight into scrutineering, and poor Mark sure does get restarted and goes straight into scrutineering. We'll have to see what the officials say about that. Congratulations, Nigel Mansell, your 3rd Grand Prix victory. Ayrton Senna coming across the line. No fuel problems there. And we'll see if Stefan Johansson, yes, Stefan Johansson, great drive, Stefan Johansson. He's going to, and Alboreto certainly closed in on him. Stefan Johansson's going to want me to wear his driver's suit between every race. Well, luck.
I just wonder whether that was in fact Stefan Johansson driving that car. I just wonder whether it was John Bizignano after seeing that safety plate.
There's certainly some style similarities, that's for sure.
Well, you're looking down as the cars are brought in, and there's Senna's car coming to a stop. This is for the technical checkup. The cars now have to be weighed. Alain Prost, a very brave sixth-place finish and 1 championship point comes to Alain Prost, which will give him a total of 23 points in the World Championship. It will, however, give 28 points to Ayrton Senna. So Senna has a lead in the World Championship standings. Nelson and Piquet did not pick up any points today. Keke Rosberg didn't, but Nigel Mansell did. He picks up 9 points. So he brings himself up to 18 points. Ayrton Senna will be actually on 25 points. So it's a small lead of 2 points for Ayrton Senna in the World Championship standings. We'll be back for much more to discuss in this Grand Prix of Belgium as Alain Prost continues round. Well, you're showing scenes here. The Belgian Grand Prix has come to an end, and there you see the World Championship standings. Ayrton Senna of Brazil with 25, Prost with 23, only 2 points separating them. Nigel Mansell with 18, 15 is Nelson Piquet, who did not finish today. Rosberg is 11th, and here you see the checkered flag being given to Nigel Mansell in slow motion, a happy flag for him. Look at the flags on the left-hand side of the picture, the rising sun and Old Rule Britannia. And there's the happy picture at the end. Look at that. Stefan Johansson speaking now to Nigel Mansell. The national anthem, the United Kingdom, being played, God Save the Queen. Nigel Mansell tucking his earplugs in, coming to attention.
Looks a little tired, a little winded after this. Ayrton Senna does not look too happy, and Stefan Johansson is elated.
He's a happy boy. Let's look at this as we give the top 10 finishes here. We can show them as the trophy of the Belgian Grand Prix. What wonderful names have gone onto that. Happy to say that mine's on there, but some fantastic, fantastic names. Caracciolas and Banjos and all sorts of people. So Nigel Mansell wins. Ayrton Senna was second. Stefan Johansson was third. Michele Alboreto in the other Ferrari fourth. Jacques Lafitte, the Frenchman, in fifth position. Alain Prost taking sixth position. Fabi in seventh. Riccardo Patrese in eighth position. Mark Surer finished ninth, was credited with ninth. Gerhard Berger, who was sitting in the front row of the grid at the beginning, finished 10th. Alan Jones, for your information, was 11th, and Streff was 12th, the only runners at the end. And look at the champagne. Oh, Morten Chandon getting a plug again. Look at them all over the place, emptying it all over. Ayrton Senna and Nigel Mansell not chatting very much there.
Not chatting at all.
And there's the Constructors' Championship. McLaren are still leading with 34. The Tag McLaren team. Williams are very close to them in 33 points. And there you see the happy man won his third ever Grand Prix victory. The World Championship is some distance away from him, but he's certainly showing great promise. We'll be right back after this.
Another beautiful high shot of the Spa-Francorchamps circuit in the Ardennes forest. One interesting thing is that the World Championship, the first 3 places, is occupied by 3 different types of engine manufacturers. When turbos first came in, it was totally dominated by 1 or 2 teams, and here we have the Lotus Renault, McLaren Tag designed by Porsche, and the Honda driven by Nigel Mansell. So Formula One in turbo specification is becoming closer and much more competitive. Something good to see.
Well, we'll be, of course, giving you a lot more motor racing here on ESPN. We've got the IMSA Camel GT Series coming up tomorrow. That's Monday the 26th at 2:30 Eastern Time, 11:30 Pacific Time. That's at Lime Rock, Connecticut. Then on the 1st of June, you're going to have the Kart American 200. That's going to be at Wisconsin State Fair Park. Mario Andretti is the defending champion. That's going to be an interesting event in Milwaukee. So then you've got the next one, of course, after that is the one we'll be doing, the Canadian Grand Prix. And you, of course, will be live there again. The Grand Prix of Belgium has been brought to you by BF Goodrich TA radios, built for you to take on the road. By MasterCard, MasterCard International, master the possibilities. And by Budweiser, Beechwood aged for that clean, crisp taste.